Hello, my name is Mariana Marques, and this is Connecting the Dots. Batu communities in Uganda, Rwanda, and the DRC are clear examples of the devastating effects of fortress conservation, the colonial model for nature preservation that posits the mutual exclusion of nature and humans. Often, the designation of protected areas leads to the displacement of the very people responsible for stewarding that ecosystem, those who thrive in and relied on that land for their spiritual and physical sustenance. In the Bwindi forest in 1991, wildlife conservation efforts pushed Batu communities to the margins of Ugandan society. Unable to navigate the society, their marginalization deepened. And this very brief, abrupt, and violent chapter had devastating consequences for a people who had been thriving for millennia as forest dwellers. The scarce existing statistics focusing on Batu communities in Uganda in the realm of education, health, or financial resources reflect an astounding level of social and economic marginalization. So much so that it becomes too easy to erase two aspects that are fundamental for a truthful narrative of the Batwa. Firstly, that these people not only survived but thrived in the forest through a profound and ancient knowledge system of resources for shelter, food, and medicine that the forest provided for. Secondly, that the extreme marginalization of these communities has always been accompanied by the extraordinary resilience and tireless work of Batu individuals and Batu-led organizations fighting to better lives, reclaim their people's rights, and protect knowledge, culture, and identity. Hasmus has partnered with three Batu-led organizations in the past few years, and those experiences have made clear to us how Batu voices must be recognized and heard on the global stage. Listening to the testimonies by Batu individuals leads to a profound and essential reflection on the history of colonialism in conservation, the structures and processes of colonization that are still ongoing, and the devastating effects they have had and continue to have. But most of all, the stories that are about the future, what they are doing to overcome challenges, and their dreams of prospering amidst enormous adversity. We are honored to have today Sylvia Kukunda. Sylvia, a Batu leader, is the founder and chief executive officer of Action for Batu Empowerment Group, a nonprofit Ugandan organization working to empower the Batwa. After completing a bachelor's degree in public administration management and a Master of Arts in organizational leadership and management, Sylvia decided to commit her life to representing her community at national, regional, and international human rights forums, where she has boldly spoken out against the unbearable injustice that Batwa continue to suffer under the Ugandan government's watch. Her organization's project to empower the Batu community through advocacy, education, skills development, healthcare, commercial agriculture, tourism, and research to holistically transform their lives and culture for a prosperous future. Action for Batu Empowerment Group also engages with several national and international stakeholders to find a comprehensive approach and solutions that address the challenges the Batu face. Sylvia, thank you and welcome. So, an important starting point for our conservation today is to hear in your own terms about the Batu community you come from, its culture, history, and the marginalization it has experienced since eviction. We know this is an impossible, vast question, but please give us an overview and tell us how that experience led you to found Action for Batu Empowerment Group.
I'm from the Batwa community, which is one of the indigenous communities in Uganda. The Batwa, we are original dwellers of the forest. That is how our culture, our survival, our sustainability, all our life depended on the forest in terms of food, shelter, medicinal, and also spiritual worship. All these depended on the forest. And in 1991, the forest was gazetted by the government of Uganda to conserve the forest to protect the endangered mountain gorillas. The mountain gorillas, which we stayed with in the forest, were protected over the human beings. and now the battle were forcibly evicted without free, prior, and informed consent. We are never given alternative way of living, and we became squatters on other people's land, because like when we were evicted, we had to squat on the margins of the forest, working as casual laborers or also working on other people's farms to earn a living and also for survival. We started facing, and we are still facing, economic, social, political, and environmental marginalizations, thus which also led to the formation of ABEG, Action for Batwa Empowerment Group, to empower the Batwa people to amplify their voices and speak for their own rights, because we could not stand the injustice we continued to face at the gaze of the government, which evicted us out of the forest and never compensated us to have another place where we can live. And now through this, we empower the Batwa through advocacy and also economic empowerment, research, and many other things. That is what we do as ABEG, which is one of the organizations that is Batwa found and Batwa led.
And Sylvia, how does Ugandan society perceive the Batwa's history and current situation? And to what extent are Batwa voices shaping the national discourse on these issues?
Yeah, the Ugandan society perceives Batwa as the poorest of the poor, very inferior, ignorant, because having no land, having no access to education, no access to health services and other things makes us more vulnerable, which has continued to make us more marginalized. But like it takes one's commitment and courage to start and lead something. In the same way, Action for Batwa Empowerment Group started that it can amplify the Batwa voices and also make sure that we can pattern and lobby with the government people, even the societies, to make sure that the voice of the Batwa community can be heard. However much we have faced some opposition challenges faced by the same organizations that provide the same services, who claim that they are helping the Batwa in actual sense, yet they are taking more advantage of the Batwa people. The Batwa-led organization and fund organization, it's kind of unique that we cannot take advantage of our communities. When you're a Batwa or when you're a person, you're the one, and you're having a pain, you're feeling a pain, you're the one that knows how you're paining, or how deep the pain is.
Forest conservation has contributed to the erasure of the Batwa's history as a thriving forest people. Can you elaborate on the wealth of knowledge and resourcefulness that characterize these communities when they live in the forest?
The Batwa were vast with conservation knowledge, like in terms of harvest, because we are hunter-gatherers and fruit-gatherers. We don't uproot all the things, all the trees down. We could just remove on the side of the roots, we remove food. Then after, when we see that in the place where we are staying, the food is almost done or it's not enough, we could now move to another place to still give room for this place to also grow more food. We also had knowledge on medicinal herbs. We are our own doctors, we are our own nurses, and also midwives. We knew every plant had a different meaning. We knew every plant that was dangerous or harmful to our bodies and the one that was very helpful to our lives in terms of herbal medicines. We had a culture of this basket weaving, and in our weaving baskets, we could dye the raffia with different herbal leaves, with different trees, plants, to make sure that we get different colors to beautify our baskets, which were weaving and which were used as our plates, and also keeping our food when we are staying in the forest.
With Minority Rights Group International and other local partners, you implemented a project called From Disparity to Dignity, Realizing Indigenous and Minority Rights in Development. This project studied access to education and health services in Uganda for Batwa communities and persons with disabilities, and it was used as the backbone for a national briefing on this topic. Can you tell us about some of the major findings of this study, and if there have been notable impacts on healthcare practices, policy, or awareness?
With MRG, we had this survey of better access to education and health, and our findings, one of the major findings was that the Batwa don't access education and health because they are on long distances, and more to that, in education, the Batwa don't have food to eat at school. They also have no access to education materials like books, uniforms, so you cannot go to school when you don't have uniform, or when you're putting on dirty clothes and then you say that is free education. For this universal education, there is some fee you pay which the Batwa cannot manage. The other students, they segregate them. They don't want to sit with Batwa because they are dirty, because they are smelling. And this makes the children hate school and don't go back to school. And more to that, when it comes to access to health, it is the same. There is long distance to access such services, and also there is an equal service provision. There is still a lot of marginalization that the Batwa are served lastly than these other community members. What we did after these findings, we tried to engage the government, stakeholders, even the health services, like also conducting radio talk shows to make sure that we raise awareness to consider the Batwa as any other citizens of the country. At least there is something that has changed, however much, not as all that much. There is one of the hospitals in the Wind Community Hospital in Kanungu, where at least now we have enrolled 10 Batwa VHTs. And in these schools where some Batwa children go, at least there is less marginalization. They have tried to associate with them and the harassment has reduced. However much, this is not what we expect. We expect much more better than this, where the Batwa can have access to education, they can have government sponsorships, which they have not been getting because of marginalization. We can also have like insurances, health insurance for Batwa people, because the forest is where we used to get the herbal medicine, which we no longer access, and we no longer access our herbal medicines, and we don't have money to access hospitals. So we request that the government can provide health insurances to the Batwa people.
Thank you for sharing, Sylvia. You're also a part of Land Body Ecologies, a global transdisciplinary network and research group exploring the deep interconnections of mental and ecosystem health. How has this close work with researchers from other Indigenous communities facing similar challenges strengthened your local work?
ABEG, being part of Land Body Ecologies, it has helped in building networks. We are seeing there is a lot of visibility that globally, and also we have had exposure at my attending COP28, which is one of the second COP that I attended. So this has led to experience sharing, which has also led to some learning. Also, Land Body Ecologies has really helped us to produce one of the first Batwa-led research paper. Before, other many people were coming doing research on Batwa, but Batwa were not part of the research. So, and now that the Batwa have participated and in research, it has led to having produced their first paper in research, which is one of the memorable experiences the Batwa has done, or even ABEG has done.
Going a little bit into your organization, can you tell us about some of Action for Batwa Empowerment Group's most relevant projects so far, and what are some of the achievements and outcomes they produced?
Mainly our organization, ABEG, it is to advocate for the rights of the Batwa to access education, to also do economic empowerment, and we have tried to raise our voices to speak for the rights of the Batwa people. And more to that, we have done research, which is also working as one of the advocacy tools for the Batwa communities. We have also held many stakeholders meetings with the government people, with other stakeholders for the Batwa to be valued citizens of the country. We also do skilling and entrepreneurship, where we have provided the younger Batwa women with some skills which can help them to earn a living, and we have also provided them with startup capital to also earn a living, because in the communities where we live, most of the Batwa young girls have been taken advantage of by non-Batwa, where they are impregnated, and those people don't, the fathers of those children, they don't take responsible for their children. And you find we have very many young mothers who are single mothers taking care of their children alone. So that is why we have empowered them with the skills and also given them startup capital to start their small scale businesses that they can be able to look after their families and their children. And we also try to give Batwa loans, because Batwa, they don't have capacity to go in the banks and have loans to start up businesses. We have tried to secure them with some loans to make sure that they can start up their own projects and also businesses to look after their families. And the fact that the Batwa have been facing many domestic violences, it is one of the projects that we have done to make sure that it can also reduce domestic violence.
And considering the challenges, do you foresee any possibility of the Batwa returning to their traditional forest lifestyle? What vision do you have for the future of Batwa communities in Uganda?
I see the government is silent on giving us the forest back, but my future or my vision, my goal is to make sure that the Batwa can have access to the forest again and also be able to practice our culture again. So when our culture is not practiced, it means we shall lose our culture identity in the future. Like mostly, especially for the younger generation, they no longer practice our culture, and we cannot practice it when we are not in the forest, where most of our things were like all our knowledge is. We are the first conservationists of the forest, and there is no conservation without indigenous peoples like the Batwa who were stewards of the forest, and we knew how to conserve it, such that we can keep our culture as Batwa people.
Sylvia, thank you for sharing your knowledge about Batwa communities in Uganda and for such valuable insights on how to advance Batwa rights. We urge our audience to continue following Action for Batwa Empowerment Group's extraordinary work. So thank you for being with us today, Sylvia.
You're welcome. Thank you for hosting me.
Well, thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out the podcast version or read the interview at azimuthworldfoundation.org/insights. Be an ally, stay curious. See you next time.